Hello, welcome back to another breaking news update. My name is Jimmy Boyd, and you were watching Boyd News. I want to thank you so much for tuning in today. I'm back with some more updates coming out from the war between Russia and Ukraine, and we're going to be talking more about North Korean soldiers joining the fight against the Ukrainians fighting alongside Russia, as we have another story here coming out today that a small number of North Korean soldiers have apparently arrived for deployment to Ukraine. Okay, and this was cited by two Western intelligence officials on CNN. I will show you guys that report here in just a moment. So it looks like there's a small number. We're not sure exactly how many. Let's say maybe a few hundred is probably what I'm estimating. And also, we are hearing that 3,000 North Korean soldiers are also stationed approximately 50 kilometers away from the Ukrainian border, preparing to be sent in as well. And we have also been hearing that upwards of 10,000 more North Korean soldiers are being prepared to be deployed over to Russia for training again. So we could potentially in the next few weeks be hearing that upwards of 20,000 or more North Korean troops are currently ready to start joining the fight against Ukraine. So this is very big news coming out today. I want to talk more about this. And then we've also got some reports that it looks like Ukraine is going to be mobilizing more troops. Looks like 160,000 troops will be mobilized over the next 3 months, as we know that the eastern side of Ukraine is really not doing well. The Russians are continuing to press forward. I think yesterday we had reports coming out that Selidov fell to the Russians. So that's on the eastern front, close to the city of Pokrovsk, which is a major transport and rail hub for Ukraine. And that area is definitely seeing very intense fighting right now. So yet again, another Ukrainian city apparently falling to the Russians. So definitely not good news for Ukraine. And I want to talk about several other things in regards to this war as well. I've got a few reports of Volodymyr Zelenskyy speaking at a small press conference and discussing this war, talking about several topics in regards to the victory plan. So we'll talk about that a little bit as well today. So I want to go ahead and jump right into the news, start sharing some of this information with you. Let's hop on over here to X. So from next to North Korean troops are already in Ukraine. A small number of North Korean soldiers have already arrived on the territory of Ukraine to fight on the side of Russia. This is reported by CNN, citing unnamed representatives of intelligence agencies of Western countries. According to them, the number of North Korean military in the conflict zone will grow as the DPRK army soldiers complete the training they are undergoing in eastern Russia. Meanwhile, the Financial Times quoted Ukrainian intelligence officials as saying that about 3,000 DPRK military personnel are 50 kilometers from the Ukrainian border. Okay, so again, there's some soldiers inside of Ukrainian territory currently, and also about 50 kilometers away inside of Russian territory, we have another 3,000 DPRK military troops, okay? And it says here they were transported secretly by civilian trucks from the Far East to the Kursk region. According to the sources, only a few hundred of the 3,000 military are special forces, while the rest are regular troops. Okay, so a few hundred special forces troops mixed in with these 3,000 regular military forces, okay? So very big news, guys. Looks like the North Koreans are definitely getting involved here. Here's the original report from CNN. Just wanted to cite this for you real quick. I will share this down below in the description of this video if you guys want to read about this. We're not really going to go over it, but it just says a small number of North Korean troops are already inside Ukraine, officials say. Okay, so this is major developments here in regards to North Korean troops. We've been definitely waiting for a major report to come out in regards to this, and now we're hearing it, okay? So now the next big step here is how is the West going to respond to this? Aside from sending weaponry over to Ukraine, what else are they going to do? I think NATO and the U.S. are going to have to make some big decisions very soon, and I think this is only going to continue to put more pressure on the Eastern Front, and obviously that's where Russia is primarily focused right now. So if the Kursk region ends up falling and the Ukrainians get pushed out, all those tens of thousands of soldiers are going to end up back on the eastern side of Ukraine, along with these tens of thousands North Korean troops. So it's definitely going to get very interesting over on the Eastern Front very soon, and very dangerous at the same time. So moving on to next, Biden said that the Ukrainian armed forces would have to strike the North Korean military if it enters Ukrainian territory. If the DPRK military enters the territory of Ukraine, yes, Joe Biden said on October 29th, Answering the relevant questions of journalists, his words are quoted by the White House press service. So this was apparently reported by Joe Biden, the president of the United States, yesterday, that he basically said that Ukraine should strike the North Korean troops if they end up inside of Ukraine. So it looks like we are going to be seeing some strikes on the North Korean troops, which makes sense. Why would Ukraine not strike them? I think it's kind of irrelevant to say that, but this is something that Joe Biden stated yesterday, okay? So moving on to another update from Max 24, Ukraine is planning to add another 160,000 troops to its military over the next 3 months as Kiev's forces struggle to fend off Russian advances, according to AFP. Okay, so here's the report right here. Ukraine to mobilize another 160,000 troops into army, official says. So definitely another sign that Ukraine's going to be needing more troops, and they're expecting this war to continue probably into next year. So that's quite a bit, another 160,000 being mobilized into Ukraine's army, okay? Now we're going to be talking about this press conference that Volodymyr Zelenskyy was in. We're going to show you this clip. It's about a minute long. Then I've got a few other things to show you guys of some of the things he was stating. So this one from United 24 Media. President Zelenskyy on Tomahawks. It was confidential information between Ukraine and the White House. How to understand these messages? So it means between partners, there is no confidential things. Okay, so again, what this is talking about is these Tomahawk missiles that were potentially going to be going over to Ukraine. We were not even supposed to know about this, okay? This was supposed to be confidential information, and I remember reading the victory plan or the key points of the victory plan that we announced to you guys probably about a week or two ago, that there was some parts of it that were supposed to be confidential between Ukraine, the United States, and NATO. And it looks like this information was not supposed to be leaked, but it was leaked yesterday. And we heard that Tomahawks were requested by the Ukrainians to be used as a non-nuclear deterrent package against Russia to prevent Russia from attacking Ukraine, that maybe they would start using these to strike inside of Russia, potentially forcing Russia to come to the drawing table and end the war with Ukraine, or stop them from attacking them. And looks like Volodymyr Zelenskyy was very unhappy about that. So go ahead and take a look at what he has to say.
Before the full-scale war, there are prevention things of so many leaders in the world, so many strong economies, so many strong countries, a lot of prevention steps. When I asked them in the victory plan to give me the package of long-distance weapon, and we will use it only if Russia will not stop the war and will not stop continuing escalation. I said, this is a prevention method. They said to me, this is escalation. When a lot of countries began to support victory plan, you see what's going on now in media, they said that Ukraine wants or wanted a lot of missiles like Tomahawks and etc. But it was confidential information between Ukraine and White House. How to understand these messages? So it means between partners, there is no any confidential things.
All right, pretty crazy, right? So you can see that he's very upset at the fact that this information got leaked, that this was supposed to be a deterrent package to have Russia, to force Russia to stop this war, that maybe they would start striking very, very critical infrastructure inside of Russia to prevent them from attacking Ukraine. Obviously this information got leaked, and that's why he's very upset about this. And if you notice, he said there that there's no confidentiality between the White House and Ukraine. Okay, and this is exactly what we saw with the Israelis recently as well too. So I don't know if this is a strategy that the White House is going with in regards to leaking this information, but we can definitely see that Volodymyr Zelenskyy is very upset by this, that this is not something that he wanted. Okay, so very crazy and unfortunate for the Ukrainians. Also from Bliskovka, we could have captured the Kursk nuclear power plant, but we never wanted to, Zelenskyy said in an interview with journalists from Northern Europe. The Ukrainian government is for Trump's quick steps in establishing peace, but Russia must pay. We are also on the side of a quick, peaceful solution, but we are not the only ones who have to pay for it. Ukraine received only 10% of the aid package voted for by Congress this year. And the issue is not money, but bureaucracy and logistics. Before the Washington summit, the partners said that they are not ready to invite Ukraine to NATO, but will give it 6 to 7 air defense systems. We have still not received these systems. So this interview with these journalists from Europe, this interview is basically him complaining about a lot of the things that Ukraine is not receiving, which I totally understand where he's coming from with this. As you notice here, he said that 6 to 7 air defense systems were not received. As Ukraine obviously wants to join NATO to have that blanket of protection, but in return, they're like, okay, well, we'll just give you some air defense systems. But we've been hearing this for a long time that a lot of these air defense systems aren't even going over to Ukraine. And then if you notice here, he mentions only 10% of the aid packages voted for by Congress have been actually received by Ukraine. So clearly there's some sort of logistical problem here, or something's going on in the background where Ukraine's just not getting what they should be receiving. And it almost seems like it could be potentially something that is being done deliberately to prevent Ukraine from actually escalating the war on their behalf, because obviously they want to push and force Russia to end this conflict. And we've seen time and time again that the West is very afraid to get involved in any type of escalation. Even with Romania recently, for example, Romania's had their airspace violated probably 10 or 12 times now by Russian drones, and they refuse to shoot these down. So I don't know exactly what NATO and the West is trying to do here, but it doesn't seem to be working, as now we're still continuing to see escalation on Russia's behalf, but the West and Ukraine are not really able to respond to this, or not responding to it. So moving on to another update from the Ukrainian Review. Ukraine is preparing for the third winter with blackouts, which will be decisive, Zelenskyy said. This is also something he mentioned at this same interview. We need at least an invitation to NATO and the deployment of a defense package as a signal to Russia. The post-war settlement plan will be ready in November. Putin can be invited, but he himself does not know what to do after the war. Ukraine seeks to end the war and preserve the lives of its people. Okay, and something he also mentioned as well, that unlike on the Eastern Front, whenever they start to lose an area, when there's only a few hundred soldiers left, a lot of the times we will see them withdraw their troops instead of staying there to fight till the end, to save as many people as possible. So we can definitely see that Ukraine has a much different approach to this war than like Russia does. Russia's just like meat grinder status. They just throw everybody into this war. If they don't make it, they just go ahead and recruit even more troops, just like what we're seeing from North Korea. Ukraine is definitely trying to take a different approach in regards to this war, and also something that he mentioned with the Kursk nuclear power plant up in the Kursk region, that they could have taken the Kursk nuclear power plant, but they chose not to, because that would make them look like how Russia is, how Russia occupied the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant. So they're definitely trying to be different than Russia, but at the same time still try to defend themselves and maintain their integrity. Okay, so moving on to some more updates from the Ukrainian Review. We have this report today that a building was struck, possibly even several buildings inside of Kyiv, the capital of Ukraine, by drones, as I think we had somewhere around 60 or more drones that were fired into Ukraine last night. So it says here a high-rise building in Kyiv was damaged due to the fall of the debris of a drone. 9 people were injured, among them an 11-year-old girl. A fire broke out in several apartments. So it looks like this apartment building in Kyiv taking a direct hit from a Russian drone, probably one of these Shahed 136 drones. We can see a fire broke out here as this building was directly struck, and more damage here with the fire breaking out on the inside of that unit. And we can see here some firefighters trying to rescue probably some of the people that were trapped inside after they put the blaze out. So very sad situation once again in Ukraine. We just reported yesterday 2 cities coming under attack. I think it was Kharkiv and Kryvyi Rih being struck by Russian missiles and glide bombs. So once again, we have more Russian drones flying into Ukraine. Here was the original report today from Bliskovka. As of 7 a.m., air defense forces of Ukraine shot down 33 out of 62 Russian UAVs. Aerial targets were destroyed in the Kyiv, Cherkasy, Khmelnytsky, that's a hard one to say, Kharkiv, Zaporizhzhia, Donetsk, Dnipropetrovsk, Sumy, Cherniv, and Poltava regions. 25 Russian drones were lost in the area. The information is being clarified and updated. Okay, so it looks like 33 out of 62 Russian drones shot down overnight last night, and clearly some of them even striking Kyiv, okay? Then we also had this report coming out from Igor Sushko, Russia, Ukrainian drone explosion in Zelensky in the Kursk region. So it looks like Ukraine was firing some drones up into the Kursk region of Russia. And I'm assuming that maybe this drone got shot down because it looks like it landed outside somebody's home over here in looks like some sort of yard or something over here. So take a look at this.
Это осколок машины. Ебало машину. Человеку, глянь. Это дрон лежит под нами. Это пиздец.
Okay, so to me, this video does not look like this drone struck the building. It's possible, but it definitely looks like it most likely was shot down and exploded here outside somebody's home inside the Kursk region. So this is the first time I've seen drones exploding inside the Kursk region recently. We've usually seen these drones landing in other parts of Russia, but it looks like we had one even inside the Kursk region just last night. Okay, also from Bliskovka, a fire broke out on the territory of the Central Research Institute of Special Machine Building in the Moscow region. Russian media reported the fire occurred in a workshop where finished products used in the rocket, space, petrochemical, transportation, and energy industries are tested. Okay, so looks like another fire breaking out and critical infrastructure inside the Moscow region, and it almost seems like every time we see there's a fire, it's usually in the Moscow region. So again, I don't know if these are sabotage events or what these are, but we've got a video to show you of some smoke here and a picture, so take a look at this. Okay, so from this video, looks like a pretty heavy fire at one of these buildings over here, facility producing lots of different equipment for Russia. Looks like a lot of different categories of what Russia uses in their country being targeted here, and potentially what could be a sabotage event. We'll have to see. Maybe more information will come out on this, but again, being used for rocket, space, petrochemical, transportation, energy industries for testing, okay? And here's another picture of smoke at this facility as well. So again, very interesting. We continue to see lots of random fires breaking out inside of Russia, and it always happens to be some sort of building or some sort of site that appears to be very significant for Russia is what we continue to see, okay? So moving on to another update. Now I've got a few things to show you guys coming out from eastern Ukraine. This came out from Clash Report. Since early October, Russia has seized 478 square kilometers of Ukrainian territory, okay? So that's just this month, marking its largest territorial gain since March 2022. Just last week alone, 196 square kilometers of land were captured, okay? And the source was Welt. Here's a picture that they shared for you guys showing some of the areas of land that was taken. So definitely we are continuing to see this. And if you notice, 478 square kilometers, that's roughly about half of the territory that Ukraine currently held inside the Kursk region up here prior to this recent offensive from the Russians, probably about 3 weeks ago. And yeah, it looks like the Russians are now starting to make gains on the east. So definitely not looking good for Ukraine as the Russians are continuing to push, okay? So dangerous situation over here. We also hear from the Ukrainian Review, Zaporizhzhia region will become a new Ukrainian fortress. The head of OVA, Ivan Fedorov, reported. He stressed that defense structures are regularly upgraded to meet new threats such as drone attacks, which is why anti-drone nets are being installed here. So here's a few pictures coming out from the Zaporizhzhia region. We can see some of these trenches being constructed here by the Ukrainians, as they are definitely turning this place into a fortress. According to this information, here's Dragon's Teeth being laid out as well. And we heard recently that the Russians could be building up forces upwards of 200,000 troops in the Zaporizhzhia region, many of them coming from Crimea. And we have not heard of any offensive actions over here just yet, but we have been hearing multiple reports of troops building up in the south over here in the Zaporizhzhia region. So that makes sense why Ukraine is definitely fortifying this area heavily. Okay, also from Bliskovka, Russians are 2.5 to 3 kilometers from Kupiansk. This is up in the Kharkiv region. Reports City Military Administration Chairman Andriy Bezedin. Constant shelling, constant destruction of critical civilian infrastructure. even if we are talking about the right bank, the enemy is constantly striking, including with guided aerial bombs of 1.5 tons beset in notes. So here's a map to show you guys how close they're getting. This is the city of Kupiansk right here, and they're definitely getting very close, okay? Approximately 2.5 to 3 kilometers away. And I think just not too long ago, we were hearing they were somewhere around 5 kilometers away, probably closer to these towns over here. So they are definitely inching closer and closer to taking Kupiansk. And this was a town that had roughly, I believe, somewhere around 25 to 27,000 people that lived here. And many of them have been evacuated due to a lot of the shelling. I think there's somewhere around 2, maybe 3,000 people currently living there up in the Kharkiv region. So the Russians getting closer to taking yet again another strategic town in eastern Ukraine, okay? Also from Max 24, this came out today. U.S. Department of Treasury announced new sanctions against 275 individuals and legal entities involved in the supply of technology to Russian military industry. Companies and individuals from 17 countries, including India, UAE, China, Switzerland, Thailand, and Turkey. Okay, so multiple companies and individuals being sanctioned by the U.S. Department of Treasury just today. So it says here 275 individuals and legal entities. So pretty massive sanctions package going out once again from the United States. A couple more things to show you guys here before we get you out of here from Military News UA. The Ukrainian army managed to reduce losses by 30% due to the use of robotic complexes in units, a source of envy in the General Staff of Ukraine. This has already been confirmed on the battle line during hostilities. So we know that Ukraine is using lots of robots right now, okay? They've got these little drones right here. I've seen some robot dogs as well. We have lots of these FPV drones being used by Ukraine also. These are first-person view drones. So I'm sure these drones are making a huge impact, and they're probably going to be used a lot against these North Korean troops that come in as well. And I believe Wild Hornets is one of the major companies that produces these FPV drones for Ukraine. So we have lots of different types of drones being used by the Ukrainians, and this is what they're having to resort to. Is obviously they don't have a huge population in their country like Russia does. Russia's got plenty of population to dip into if they really want to start mobilizing, sending people to the front, which we're going to talk about in this next post. From Max 24, Russia's general staff and defense ministry have put heavy pressure on the Kremlin to mobilize more men, says the European official. According to The Economist, Russia now doesn't have sufficient forces to mass. If they achieved a breakthrough, they could not exploit it. Okay, so this information talking about mobilization in Russia as well. If you notice here in the beginning, it says Russia's general staff and defense ministry put heavy pressure on the Kremlin to mobilize more men. Okay, so what Russia's doing right now is a whole lot of not so much mobilization, right? They're not mobilizing too many men. They could be mobilizing a lot more, but what we have seen Russia do instead is pull troops from North Korea. Okay, so I'm not sure exactly why Vladimir Putin is choosing not to mobilize more people in their country. Maybe they don't want a major uprising, as potentially a lot of people in the country are not happy with this war anyway and maybe would want it to end. And maybe that's why Vladimir Putin is choosing not to mobilize, but they could be mobilizing a lot more soldiers into their military, but are choosing not to. And he stated here that even if they make some sort of breakthrough, they would not be able to exploit the breakthrough. And maybe that's why we're seeing these North Korean troops showing up, and we keep hearing that tens of thousands could be on the way to fight alongside Russia. So again, the Eastern Front, although they are not mobilizing a lot of men, we are still continuing to see the Russians making gains in eastern Ukraine. So this war is definitely getting more and more interesting every single day, especially now that we're hearing that North Korean soldiers have officially arrived inside of Ukraine. So let's wait and see what the West and NATO is going to do in regards to this. How will they respond? Will they finally lift restrictions, allow Ukraine to start striking targets inside Russian territory? I don't think that will happen anytime soon, but it could come in the near future. Aside from that, I'm not sure what else NATO could really do other than maybe getting more heavily involved in the war, potentially even with troops if need be. So let's see what happens here, but that's going to be it for today's update. If you got something out of this, please smash that like button. Also, if you enjoy my content, please consider subscribing down below. Hit the notification bell, that way YouTube can notify you. And with that, hope you all have a great day. Everybody take care and God bless, and we'll see you in the next one.